Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
An extremely long fight. People nowadays tend to go along with the commonly used joke about Dragon Ball having a ton of long drawn-out fights between two characters. But, unsurprisingly, one of the biggest fights in the show's history would definitely have to go to the fight between Goku and Frieza. If you weren't aware, yes, Goku did, in fact, end up fighting Frieza on the planet of Namek. However, something you probably don't remember is the fact that the fight between the two took 19 episodes. Now think about the math here. If you take the average time for an episode, which is approximately 25 minutes, and multiply that by 19, you basically watched an 8-hour fight between two characters. Don't get me wrong, that's pretty amazing. But those 8 hours could have easily been used for more character and story progression. This, of course, is why people make fun of the show. 14. Goku's arrival. With Frieza being the main antagonist of the entire series, it's unsurprising that his actions led to other characters arriving in the series. Goku was an example. Frieza, being the one to control his own army and being known for his ruthlessness and ridiculous levels of power, was the reason for why Goku arrived. Given this information, it's no longer surprising why the fight between Goku and Frieza was so epic and long. It's like the two biggest rivals finally fighting each other to the death. Frieza is a descendant of children, one of the sons of King Cold, who is the all-powerful king of the entire universe. Again, you could easily replace King Cold with a god-like figure, and you'd have the same effect. Because of this, it's no surprise that Frieza is known as the most powerful being in the universe, though big heroes die hard. 13. Family and affiliations. Yes, believe it or not, even someone as powerful and feared as Frieza has a family, and a damn impressive one, too. While Frieza is the second son of the king of the universe, he is also the younger brother to Cooler, who harnesses the same amount of power as his brother. While having a pretty impressive backstory with his family, he's also a part of several different affiliations and allegiances. A few worth mentioning are the existence of future Frieza, which obviously is an alternate version of Frieza himself. Simultaneously, Frieza also plays a big part in the Galactic Frieza army along with his father and brother. The army is set in stone and is used to bring together the most powerful creatures in the universe and enslave them to do their bidding. This organization is no surprise as it is run by the most powerful characters in the universe. 12. The most powerful being. When people in the Dragon Ball Z universe even heard whispers of the name Frieza being thrown around, it legitimately struck fear into their souls. Frieza is considered to be the absolute most powerful being in the universe. Although this could be replaced with a god-like creature, Frieza was basically that. He was so powerful that even when Goku attempted to consider getting into a fight with Frieza, he was begged not to do it. Can you imagine that? We heard a lot about Goku in my previous article, and people would practically beg him not to fight Frieza. The same can be said of Vegeta as well, seeing as the only way he felt comfortable fighting Frieza was to harness their power to become immortal. If at some point in your life, you literally have to harness the power of immortality to fight somebody, perhaps the fight isn't as worth it as you may think. 11. Name and themes. You've probably already figured it out, but the creators of Dragon Ball are really good at being somewhat clever and somewhat silly with the names they give their characters. We spoke about this before with the names of vegetables, etc. However, even though Frieza and the family are really powerful creatures, this doesn't keep them from the ridiculousness of clever names. Frieza, for instance, is just another clever way of saying freezer. King Cold is obviously meant to insinuate he is the coldest being. Even Frieza's brother is simply named Cooler. As obvious as it may seem, this theme stretches across other people involved with the Frieza family. Frost, for instance, was a member of the Frieza race from a completely separate universe. So no matter how many planets you are separated by, you won't escape the silliness of character names in the Dragon Ball franchise. Now, where can I get a cooler full of ice around here? 10. Meme games strong. Of course, with the existence of the internet, memes have become a popular form of art that has allowed people to express themselves through the use of meme language. Believe it or not, even Dragon Ball Z has had its fair share of meme origins. The obvious choice would go to It's Over 9000, which has been a popular meme for several years. However, even Frieza has been the origin of an internet meme. The internet took his quote of "this isn't even my final form" and decided that it was fitting to use it for pictures that showed someone progressing into something else. For instance, there is the one above with Woody from Toy Story in a terribly deformed state. This is accompanied by the text "this isn't even my final form," giving the impression that there is more obscurity to be seen. 9. Power level. With Frieza being a part of the family that is known for its power, it should not be surprising to hear about his ridiculously high level of power. Frieza's father, King Cold, is known to be a mutant with an unusually high power level. Of course, this particular level of power does indeed get passed down to the two sons. However, only Frieza and King Cold in the known universe have access to this abnormally high level of power. Can you imagine having this type of power in the real world? You'd be the leader of the free world in no time, though with the level of power these two have, I would hate to be caught in the midst of a fight between them and others. This is more than likely why just the names can strike fear into the souls of those that aren't worthy. 8. Akira Toriyama. You know what's scarier than monsters? Monsters that you make up in your mind and see often enough until you get yourself to believe they're real. Our imaginations are both fickle things and unbelievably interesting things. You can lead yourself to believe practically anything if you really put your mind to it, so much so that you could see something in a completely different light than you ever thought imaginable. Frieza, for instance, is one of the main focuses of this. Akira Toriyama, the creator, in his childhood, at least, truly believed that monsters looked exactly like Frieza. Imagine being a child and thinking monsters looked like that? In defense of the creator, at least he didn't end up losing his mind completely because of what his mind was telling him. Instead, he successfully concretized what the world looked like through his eyes, Frieza included, of course. 7. Frieza's fake death. You've probably already heard by now that Frieza was supposedly killed on Namek. However, what isn't widely known is that Frieza didn't actually die on Namek. Crazy, right? Well, don't worry, Goku and the other characters had no idea about it first. What actually occurred was Frieza was scavenged and made complete again by cybernetic features and abilities. Though, knowing Frieza, this isn't exactly the outcome he expected. However, instead of moping around and feeling sorry for himself, he decided to take control of this newfound power, and wreak havoc on those that deserved it, Goku included. In today's world, if you ever feel that someone is stronger than you, just keep in the back of your mind that they, too, may harness a certain amount of power to allow them to come back even stronger, though I'd recommend staying away from anybody like that, unless you're interested in death itself. 6. Forms and transformations. As can be expected within the Dragon Ball universe, the characters will come to take on various forms and transformations that make them stronger and more unique from each other. Frieza is, of course, no different. There are many different forms that Frieza takes that have their own ability to make him stronger and a far more difficult enemy. The first few would have to be his first, second, and third forms. These forms allow Frieza to become stronger and more brutal than the previous forms. Once he reaches his final form, he's become a formidable foe, being the most brutal-looking character you'll ever see. Along with these is his mecha form, which is exactly how it sounds. When he was reconstructed after his supposed death, he became part mechanical, therefore birthing his mecha form. This, of course, comes with great power and prowess. This is not something you'd want to mess with. 5. Unique traits. Unique techniques and abilities are something unique to many characters in the Dragon Ball universe. Of course, Frieza is no exception of this rule, as he does come jam-packed with his own abilities and techniques that he can use whenever he feels doing so is necessary. Given that Frieza is known to be one of the most powerful creatures in the universe, you'd expect his arsenal to be pretty impressive. Well, it is. Frieza has the ability of telekinesis, laser eyes, death beam, death ball, and flight, among so many others. Perhaps my favorite of his abilities is his transformation. As I mentioned earlier, Frieza can be found in many forms. He has the capacity to become a fiendish and brutal opponent, but don't be fooled, his weakest form still certainly isn't weak, for Frieza looks like a xenomorph. We haven't really gone in depth about Frieza and the various forms he can be seen in. Certainly, you already know that Frieza has the ability and capacity to reach certain forms of himself, be it stronger or weaker. Well, during his third form transformation, Frieza takes on the form of what seems to almost be a representation of a xenomorph. Although he's not at his strongest in this, for it's far more menacing than anything you'll see in the show. Let's be honest with ourselves, if we were wandering around the wasteland and you saw something like this coming after you, we'd probably surrender. Again, we're talking about Frieza here, one of the most powerful, and, of course, brutal-looking enemies you can come across. Just don't bother picking a fight with him. You'll lose quicker than you can Kamehameha. And that's a scary thought in its own right. 3. Voice actor behind Frieza. When we talked about Saiyans in a previous article, we mentioned a voice actor behind one of the voices of the Saiyans, so I want to do the same thing here. Frieza's voice actor is none other than Ryuzo Nakao. If you don't know who this particular gentleman is, you need to be informed immediately. While doing the full-on badass voice acting for Frieza, he's also done work in Real Monsters giving Akise's voice. On top of this, he's also providing voice acting for Tambourine in the Dragon Ball anime. However, he's becoming undoubtedly famous for Frieza, as he plays him not only in Dragon Ball Z, but also in Dragon Ball Kai, Dragon Ball Super, Dragon Ball GT, and however many other Dragon Ball shows there are. They say a man gets defined by his actions. Well, Ryuzo Nakao will be forever known as the guy that voices Frieza. 2. Dragon Ball Online. Though not entirely related to the show, Frieza does indeed show up in Dragon Ball Online. If you're unfamiliar with what this is, Dragon Ball Online is what happens when you turn Dragon Ball Z into a massively popular multiplayer online role-playing game. Sounds awesome, right? Well, you can still play it if you'd like. Anyway, Frieza's role in the online game is somewhat the same as what we already know. He attacks the planet Namek, and he, of course, transforms into some of the many forms we know of him. Although a video game is not usually the venue for the greatest representation of a character, I would say that just by the looks of it, Frieza is designed to stick to his original character, as opposed to him being very different in the game. It's fortunate for longtime fans that the most powerful character in the franchise's universe isn't changed much in the video game. That makes for far less disappointment. 1. Creation and birth. Although we've been talking about Frieza a lot already, we still haven't mentioned his creation and supposed birth. He started off as a broker, his sole interest being buying and reselling entire planets. Imagine being that type of broker, selling planets for a living. Crazy stuff. Anyway, the reason he was created was because Akira Toriyama thought it'd be perfect to have a broker in the style of the worst kind of brokers, or, as he puts it, real estate speculators. There's something certainly interesting about being able to have the power to create anything that your mind shows you. Akira Toriyama should be proud of what he's created. And it's nice to finally see a creator that believes that making something super powerful isn't necessarily a bad thing. Imagine if all shows were made this way. Well, we'd then have multiple Dragon Ball shows.
Subscribe for more.